Al.
That's me.
Tell me about time travel.
Um, you have to go 88 miles per hour to make it happen.
And then you're going to see some serious.
Like fire on the road
Mm-hmm.
and awful things.
Well, that's one way to time travel.
Mm-hmm.
There's multiple other ways.
Like a microwave.
Like a microwave. So that's an easy one. Or as this game will tell you in the very beginning, like, here's all these, like, 4 or 5 different time travel theories. Let's have a deep dive into them. Oh, boy. Hello, welcome to this week's episode of Season of Checkup OVA. It's a podcast where we have conversations about video games, anime, manga. I am Jared, joined as always by Doc Al and Ladium.
Hello.
We're going to talk about time
travel. I'm not
travel
a doctor
today.
of time travel, though.
You could be.
But I'm not. I don't have my doctorate in time travel.
That is true. Unless you wanted to just say you did. Who's going to stop you?
Well, then people would ask me questions. I don't have the answers to them.
Just say it's an interesting idea and you'll get back to them on it. That's all you gotta do.
God.
We're playing, or we're not playing, we're talking about a game that I played a little while back and you just recently played.
Mm-hmm.
Over the course of different chunks.
Yeah, it took a little bit because of dumb things happening.
Yes. We are talking about Steins Gate.
Mm-hmm.
The rather popular science fiction video game / anime / manga / live action TV show coming up.
Wild.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what we're doing today.
Mm-hmm.
Gonna talk about that. Were you aware of this game's release history? Do you know what platform this game released first on? In Japan.
I'm gonna guess PSP.
Incorrect.
Okay.
The Xbox 360.
It's a Lost Odyssey type situation.
Honestly, yeah.
Interesting.
So yeah, it was originally released on the Xbox 360 on October 15th, 2009. Before eventually being ported to the personal computer on August 26, 2010 in Japan, then to the PlayStation Portable on June 23rd, 2011, to iOS on August 25th, 2011, and then to PS3 and Vita on May 24th, 2012 and March 14th, 2013, before eventually coming over here in English via a PC release on March 31st, 2014, and coming to the PS3 and Vita on August 25th, 2015, and then a re-release was put out very recently, which is the version you played.
Mm-hmm.
That was put out on PS4 and Switch in September 2018 in Japan, and then worldwide on February 19th, 2019. It also got ported to the Vita in Japan, did not come over here on the Vita, and then also was put out on the personal computer over here and put out on phones in Japan very recently in October of 2019.
Wow.
So there you go. Big old stuff.
Been everywhere, man. But I was right that it was on the PSP at one point.
At one point, yes.
Yay, I wasn't completely off.
This game is a part of a overall giant series of games, which they call the Science Adventure series, which includes this, Chaos Head, Chaos Child, Robotics Notes, and then Occultic 9 and Anonymous Code, which are basically kind of like sci-fi stuff. They kind of all sort of take place in the same universe. I think have like similar writers and all that sort of stuff. But this is the only one of those I've played. So
I have Chaos Child, I think, the one that's on the Vita.
Yes.
But I haven't played it.
I think that one's more about like a serial murderer.
Yes, it is. I can tell you that.
I think I watched a little bit of that anime, but never got too far.
Well, I have that game.
There you go. But we're going to talk about Steins Gate today.
Yes, we are.
a series that you came to much later than I did,
Mm-hmm.
because I played a fan translation of the PC port,
Wow.
which, if you're wondering, has some problematic language in it.
Oh, I bet. I
Probably the
mean,
least surprising thing you could say.
honestly, like, not surprised in the least based on some of the characters in this that there would be problematic language in
Mhm.
it.
So this is a visual novel, obviously, in case
Mhm.
you were not aware. The version you played, Steins Gate Elite, is a little bit different than the original version because they basically kind of modernized some of like the visual novel elements of the game, but also they replaced all of the original art with art from the anime. So that lets them kind of do some different things than what you could have done in the original game, where like you can kind of show off specific scenes like more animated than they would have been in the original game because you're just
Mhm.
using the anime scenes. But also, as you made mention, there's a lot of times where they just reuse the same visual over and over again.
Yeah, and that's annoying because there are many scenes that I'm like, that is the exact same scene. They just reused it. Like, literally no difference, but different context. And it doesn't make sense that you would have the exact same art.
Mhm.
Um, and some of it is not the best quality. And so, like, when you have repeated art show up and it, like, doesn't look great, you're like, oof, that one again, huh? Okay. Um, so that's definitely a thing, but it just got really irritating to me to have like the same few scenes repeated with just different dialogue.
Right.
So that stinks.
Yeah. Um, it was interesting because you were like, "Man, I really wish I could have played this with the original art." And it's like the original art is very distinctive and striking in a way that the anime doesn't really capture. But I don't know if they would have been, if you could really capture that in an anime per
Yeah,
se.
it would be difficult. It would
Yeah.
definitely be difficult. But like after looking at the original art, I'm like, ooh, that's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. You want to talk about some development history of this game, real
Of course
quick?
I do.
As we talked about, Steins Gate is the second collaborative work between 5PB and Nitro Plus after Chaos Head. The game is created with the concept of 99% science, or reality in parentheses, and 1% fantasy in mind. The planning for Steins Gate was headed by Chiyomaru Shikura of 5PB. The characters were designed by Ryohei Fuke, also known as Huke, known as one of the illustrators of the Metal Gear Solid series and the creator of the Black Rock Shooter franchise, whereas the gadgets were designed by Sharp, not like the company Sharp. This has like an @ sign in the middle. Naotaka Hayashi of 5PB wrote the scenario with assistance from Vio Shimokura of Nitro Plus. Tatsuya Matsuhara from 5PB was the producer, and Toso Pehara from Nitro Plus was the art director. The music was composed by Takashi Abo of 5PB and Toshimichi Isoe of Ziz Studio. Shikura Hayashi, Matsuhara, Abo, and Isoe had all previously worked on Chaos Head. The title Steins Gate had no specific meaning, being coined from the German word Stein, meaning stone, and tying in with famous physicist Albert Einstein. Steins Gate was inspired by earlier visual novels written by Hiroyuki Kano. These include Eve Burst Era, which came out in 1995, and most notably the time travel adventure You Know, A Girl Who Chanced Love at the Bound of This World, which came out in 1996, which I think got like a re-release sometime recently.
Really?
Something like that. Or like they did like an anime or something. Matsuhara, who came up with the concept of the phone trigger system, stated that he initially wanted to incorporate the player's own mobile phone into the system. However, the idea was abandoned due to concerns that it might clash with Japan's privacy laws.
Huh.
When asked if the phone trigger system would be used in a possible sequel to the game, Hayashi stated that he would hoped this would not be the case and recalled saying, "Who thought of this system?" while writing the contents of the text messages. While Shikura did not directly contribute to the script itself, Hayashi stated that Shikura helped with the overall plot and provided assistance with the second half of the story. In particular, Shikura helped a lot with the time-traveling aspects of the story. Hayashi stated that he did not want the script to repeat the same text over and over again and was ultimately unavoidable. It was ultimately unavoidable due to the player having to travel back in time, so he tried to emphasize the overall tempo of the plot's development and how the plot unfolded. With regards to the theme of time traveling, Hayashi had felt that it seemed like an overdone topic and expressed concern over it when he first heard the idea from Shikura.
I keep hearing Shakira,
Yeah, these hips don't lie.
and it's just throwing me off quite a bit. I'm like, Shakira was involved in this. I understand that Shakira was not, but that was what I kept hearing. Let me clarify. I understand Shakira is not involved in Steins Gate.
But what
Man,
if?
what if Shakira was involved in Steins Gate? That'd be whoa. That's a crossover. Um, I don't even remember why I started playing this. I know that it was your recommendation.
That's probably why. I think it was on sale.
Yeah, it
That
was
feels about
definitely
right.
on sale because I got like the bundle pack and we are like, hey, let's play this together. And so we did share play.
For a little bit, then it was like, nah.
Yeah, we got through like a part of it, and then it's like, how about we just block the rest of the game?
And the game was like, okay, let's do that.
It was so frustrating. So we
Mm-hmm.
tried for a while to like turn my laptop around
We
and
did some real bootleg stuff here.
and try and pull that off, and eventually like things came up and I stopped playing for a while, and then I decided that I really wanted to finish it and see what was going on there because you kept telling me like, oh man, this is really gonna go places, and like I want to know what places it's gonna go.
Mm-hmm.
So I started playing it again and finally beat it last week. I don't
Like
remember
over the
when.
weekend.
Over the weekend,
I think so.
something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, I just got drooled on.
Are you petting a cat?
No, I just got drooled on. I was trying to get eye boogers out and he drooled on me. Were you hearing static?
I was hearing a bit of static.
Sorry.
Have you looked at the voice cast for this game, by the way?
No.
Because it is kind of wild. Did you
Is
know
it?
in the English dub who Mayuri is voiced by?
No.
Ashley Birch.
Really?
Yeah.
I'd be interested to hear that.
And the lady who voices her in Japanese, Kana Hanazawa, she voices Shirase in A Place Further Than the Universe.
Oh, wow.
Seems like a completely different character altogether.
Doo-doo-doo.
But yeah, they're good voice casts on both sides.
Wow. Yeah, I did not look at the voice cast at all. Whoops. You usually do that.
How dare you?
I know.
Gotta get it together.
Madness.
But yeah, we decided to play this. That was the thing.
We
Or you
did.
decided to play this. I played
Yes.
this a long time ago.
You were along for the ride for a bit
I was
until
along for the ride, and then it was like the game was like, nah, you're not along for the ride. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm not along for the ride.
so you just had to deal with me like sometimes yelling over
Yeah.
text message.
Which you took a long break in between. I think something transpired. I think it was mostly just because like you were frustrated that we couldn't do this together. So
Yes.
you eventually stopped, and then like very recently you were like, I'm gonna start playing this again because what else are we doing?
And I wanted to know what happened.
Yeah.
I finally got over my frustration and my grudge against it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I'm fully over the grudge, but less
Yes.
of a grudge.
You did the smart thing probably of basically finding a guide
Yeah, I found a spoiler-free guide for the endings.
and just went about doing it that way, which is basically the best way to do this since it has multiple ending routes you can go to and everything. And if you want to kind of streamline everything, it just makes it very easy to do so.
Well, and you'd been guiding me to begin with of like, hey, you should pick this and you should pick this and you should pick this. So I figured I would just continue that, but I didn't want to have any kind of like spoilers of what I was getting
Right.
myself into. So it was just like, make this choice, save your game, make sure you save your game, and then make this choice. Now load that save and make this choice instead. And it's like, okay.
Plus, with like the way Steins Gate Elite kind of does things, like it gives you a little bit less freedom to do things because you can't. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you can't like pull your phone up whenever you want.
No, it's only
It's like those are like specific moments that you will get.
yes.
Like in the original version, you can pull it up whenever. You can like read through text whenever. You can customize your wallpaper and ringtone and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, they streamlined it a bit here to where it's like you just need your phone for when important stuff's happening.
Yeah. And it's wild because sometimes it's like in the middle of an important cutscene and I'm like, wait, what? Why am I checking my emails right now?
Excuse me, sorry, I gotta read this.
This is an important email, guys. Um, I will say that what's his freaking name? He has two names because he has his fake name and then he has
Mm-hmm.
his real name.
Okabe,
Okabe, yeah.
the main protagonist.
He's a butt at first,
Mm-hmm.
and like for a large portion of the game, I was like, "You're insufferable, and I really can't stand you."
Mm-hmm.
Um, I no longer feel like that. Yay, character development. Um, so that's a good thing because at first I was just like, "Oh my god, dude, like, really, really." And he still falls into it sometimes, but he gets better. But he also sees some, for lack of a better word.
He goes through a lot of stuff,
He
to
does,
say the
yes,
least, and like
yes.
that kind of forces him to go through a lot of different kinds of character development all throughout.
He's
So
like what, 18?
yeah,
Okay, so he's also still a baby. So there is that. Even though he's got that like awful, awful hair,
look, he's an 18-year-old. He doesn't know what he's doing with his facial hair yet.
it's a disaster, is what it is. Like somebody needs to help this boy.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody buy him a razor. Show him the ways of shaving your face. Oh man. Um, so I guess we have him, we have Mayuri, who is like his childhood friend,
Mm-hmm.
and she's kind of like a ditzy, cute girl who likes to cosplay.
Mm-hmm.
We have Daru, which I forget his actual name,
Itaru.
but he is the super hacker.
He is super
Uh,
hacker.
Super hacker, and he is also very creepy.
There are definitely elements of this game that, like, going into this, I was like, hey, there's some problematic stuff in this game.
Yeah, you did
Let's
warn
be
me
real.
beforehand. You did warn me beforehand.
Yeah.
Um, most of it comes out of his mouth.
Yeah, I mean, it leans into specific tropes here and there that's like kind of not surprising if you kind of are into this kind of medium
Mm-hmm.
or media in general. So yeah.
We have Lukako,
Mm-hmm.
who is a guy who works at or lives at a shrine nearby.
Yeah.
That they're friends with.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then because he calls her Christina, like I keep thinking that's her name, but it's not her name.
Nope.
It's basically like Karisu, which is like how you would say Chris in Japanese,
mm-hmm.
which is where the Christina comes from. Is that really our this Ferris too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's a cat.
She is a kitty cat, and there's Moeka.
Yes. Then there's also Suzuha.
Yes, I forgot about her. Wow, how did I forget about her? She's important.
And then you have the landlord and his daughter who show up every now and then.
Mr. Braun.
Mr. Braun.
I love his I Heart CRT apron. I love the apron so much. Mm-hmm. Like every time I saw it, I was just like, that's wonderful. That's so delightful that this like massive, like built dude just runs around with like a cutesy I Heart CRT apron.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. You know where the Braun part came from though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just check it. Anyway, so that's our cast of characters for the most part. And we have the Future Gadget Lab, is that what he calls it?
Yep.
And they make things with science.
They do. They make weird experiments, and they're all numbered and named, and with very bizarre names. And then everyone gets a lab number because they're a lab member.
Lab mem. And so one of the big focus points of this is the phone wave name subject to change.
Yes. Which is a microwave.
It is a microwave. Um, Mary just wants to eat her chicken. That's all. She just really wants chicken and bananas, but the bananas don't get microwaved.
Until they do.
Until they do. I'm trying to figure out how to best like streamline this so that we're not here for like 4 hours.
What if we just go off of what Wikipedia has? Because they have at least like a few paragraphs about just how you get to the true ending, but we can also sidestep those until we get to with the alternates until we get to the actual stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could start with the beginning where like he's going to this event of a guy talking about time travel.
Yeah, it's like a little mini conference essentially.
Yeah, and Mayuri's there. I always say her name wrong. Mayuri. She's there. She wants this like OOPA metal toy.
It's a gotcha machine thing.
It is. And so he gets to attend the little conference talk. He also interrupts it. There is also a little bit of talking from Kurisu at one point. Yes.
Well, before all that happens.
Oh, the roof.
There's a lot of crazy stuff that happens. Like he goes there first to see that, and then like inadvertently stumbles in and sees her dead.
Yes.
And then he's like, "Oh, hey, I should text Daru about this. This is real messed up." Somehow teleports out of the building into the open street where there's no one around.
And
then somehow is back in the building, but everything's fine.
Yeah.
Strange phenomenon.
Yeah, he sees her in just like a puddle of blood.
Mm-hmm. And then like later sees her and she's fine, and she's like, "Why are you being weird?"
Yeah. Which, I mean, like, you could ask him that for, like, 70% of the game.
Mm-hmm.
It would be valid.
Then he also finds out, like, the message he sent Daru was, like, sent to him a week prior to this date.
And it's cut up.
Yes. Whole thing's very bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, like, he basically goes to that conference. Kurisu is the one who, is like the main speaker because like she has just been featured in this magazine called Sciencey.
Her thesis was published.
Her thesis on stuff was published on stuff.
On stuff.
And she starts like her and Okabe have like this big back and forth discussion about time travel and time travel theory and all this sort of stuff. And like it's a whole thing. You want to spend 20 minutes talking about time travel theory? This is the game for you.
Yeah, no kidding. Actually, you're probably going to spend more than that because you get even more of it later.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, basically that happens, and then like you kind of go on your merry way for a bit. You start doing some weird experiments with the microwave here and there, and essentially you realize at some point that like you can send text messages to the past. So like, how do we recreate this and do it further? Mm-hmm. And now that leads them to like experimenting with bananas and like making bananas go from the microwave back to the plate, but they're jellified.
Gel-banas.
And they're like, what is going on?
But only half of the banana is only half of the bunch of bananas is jellified.
Mm-hmm. That all leads to them like learning about CERN.
Yes.
Which is a parody of CERN, which is the European Organization for Nuclear Research. That leads them to learning about the IBM 5100, which is a parody of the IBM 5100.
Yeah.
And then also leads them to learning about this person posting on @channel whose name is John Teeter.
Yep.
Who is literally based off of someone quotation marks that what's the best way to describe this? As a person that was made up, essentially, was more of like a myth than actual reality. It was basically someone who basically kind of like publicized. Hang on, let's go down to this Wikipedia page that talks about John Teeter.
It's like an urban legend.
Yeah, it's an urban legend about someone who basically was posting on bulletin boards and 2000, 2001. They were and saying they're like, oh, I'm a military time traveler. I'm an American from the year 2036. Here's all these weird things that are going to happen over the course of the next 36 years.
This is also partially how I did it
Mm-hmm.
in terms of time travel.
And like he literally, this person basically is like, oh yeah, I'm from Florida. I was assigned to go back in time to retrieve an IBM 5100, which is literally a direct parallel to what they do in the game.
Yep.
Here's how I made this time machine. Here's my predictions of like there's going to be a civil war in the U.S. in 2004.
Whoops.
The U.S. is going to split into 5 regions. And then all sorts of like other weird stuff. And then eventually, like in 2009, people found out, oh yeah, this is just some dude who made this up as a hoax.
Yeah.
But this game basically kind of like leans into that. It's left like, let's present this like very kind of US based thing and bring it over to a Japanese audience, which is an interesting thing to do, essentially.
Right.
So yeah, there's a lot of like very close parodying of like, the John Titor story, and then just like taking real world organizations and then slightly changing them to suit your needs and all that sort of stuff. So all that's going on. They eventually learned that like CERN so this game came out around the height of the Large Hadron Collider, and people freaking out about that thing, thinking that it was going to blow the world up.
Yes.
And that's kind of a big plot point as well in this game,
mm-hmm.
about that being a thing, and that CERN is using it to research time travel, and they're time traveling people and turning them into jellymen, where like they'll put someone through time and then they'll show up somewhere and be jellified.
Or like
what
fused
happened?
into a building and jellified.
Yeah. So they learn all about that and basically try to find a way to like undermine all that's happening, but also trying to figure out their own experiments and see how they're able to recreate time travel as well, which they realize by using like a CRT TV, like that's the catalyst for making the D-mails,
mm-hmm.
the DeLorean mails,
yep,
work and everything. That's their time travel text messages.
Yeah, it's a 42-inch CRT downstairs,
mm-hmm.
That is making the phone wave name subject to change into a time machine, basically.
Mm-hmm. Like all along the way as well, like Okabe is able to like recruit Makase into the group and everything, but be like, hey, we got a time travel machine. You want to come see it? And she's like, not really. No, not really.
Then just follows him home.
Yeah.
Yeah, she is definitely tsundere. Definitely.
And then along the way as well, you meet like all the other cast of characters as well that you'll eventually have like endings with. Suzuha shows up and starts working at the TV shop downstairs, and she's very much a mystery of like, because she doesn't like Makase at all, and like you mentioned this as well, like she speaks very strangely.
Mm-hmm. She says certain things that you're like, that's off. I don't know why you would say it or word it that way.
Yeah.
So she was a mystery.
Mm-hmm. But all that's happening and everything, he's also approached by a woman named Moeka who speaks only through text messages, and she's like, she is looking for the IBM 5100, and
yes.
she learns through the grapevine or something that Okabe is also looking for it, and she's like, well, I need to use him to get to what I need.
Mm-hmm.
Which leads us to like where I think the game takes its turns.
Yeah.
Really, like initially starts taking its turns, where you learn that like Moeka is a member of the Rounders, which is a like mercenary group within CERN.
Yes.
Basically, who tried to like snuff out anyone who learns about what CERN's actually doing.
Mm-hmm. And also obtain all the computers.
Yes. So like they're having like a party, and then like her and her group bust in and kill Mayuri at one point.
Yeah, because they completed the phone wave. They moved it so that you could combine Kirisu's um ideas of like copying memories.
The brainwave device
The
thing.
brainwave device thing,
It's like a
yeah.
head thing you put on. Yeah. Basically,
Um
you shift your memories from one copy of you to, or from one version of you to another version of you in a separate world line.
via cell phone.
Right. Because the difference between that and the D mails is that you would kind of just like pop up and not really know what was happening
Mm-hmm.
because you're shifting world lines. This kind of like makes you so you know like, oh well, I'm doing this and this is what my mission is essentially.
So they're celebrating that they completed that when
Mm-hmm.
everything's busted down and uh Mayura gets shot in the dang head.
Mm-hmm. That leads Okabe basically on like this very unrelenting path to like trying to just like
Oh,
constantly save her and like figure out some way to prevent this from happening.
this is a
And
hard sequence to
mhm.
get through.
and basically every time he figures something out, every possibility ends in failure for him,
Mm-hmm.
and basically it's like just constantly just destroying him.
Yeah,
Um,
like no matter what he does, she dies in some way.
mhm. uh, Around this time is where Suzuha reveals who she really is.
Yes.
She's like, "Hey, by the way, I'm a time traveler from the future. What's up?" Um, she basically explains like her mission, everything was like to go back to the past, get the computer, and then come here and everything. Um, but also kind of like tells him like, hey, you need to get to a world line where Mayuri doesn't die,
Mm-hmm.
and that's going to take a big shift. You basically have to you have to undo everything you've done
Yeah,
to go back to your original timeline.
I can't remember if it's alpha or beta, but it's between the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so he realizes like, oh, I have to undo all these D-mails that all my friends have sent.
Right. I think the alpha world line is the original world line where Makase dies, and the beta one is the other, or something like that.
Something like that. It's one or the other.
Yeah.
Um so yeah, he has to undo all the D-mails to get back to that timeline, which like all the characters that we mentioned have sent D-mails
Mm-hmm.
to do whatever they wanted it to like do. Some of them are pretty easily relatively undone, and some are not as easily undone.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's get into some of those.
Okay.
So let's talk about Suzuha's ending first, because it's first on this list.
Yes.
Um, I believe this revolves around her going and trying to find her dad.
Yeah, she's trying to find her dad, but also since you learn that she's a time traveler, she explains to you that like the satellite that everybody thinks is a satellite in the building is actually her time machine,
Mm-hmm.
and that it is now damaged because of rain that happened like earlier that week.
Mm-hmm.
And so it won't work so that she can get back to fix things. Also, we learned that the time machine can only go backwards, it cannot go back forward.
Mm-hmm.
It's an incomplete time machine that her dad built.
Correct. So yeah, like he has to send a D-mail to like not follow her at some point.
Well, yeah, his original D-mail was to like make sure that she like comes to the party or something.
Right.
And then he has to send the D-mail that he has to let her go. Which there is one timeline of this where she's able to go back because the time machine is broken. She loses all of her memories until
Mm-hmm.
like right before she writes this like intense letter that is just like her repeatedly saying, I failed, I failed, I failed, I failed, I failed, I failed, and then like killing herself. Which, yikes!
Yeah.
Super yikes. That was a very hard sequence. Also, I actually kind of figured out who her dad was accidentally.
Mm-hmm.
Very
You just piece things
accidental.
together.
I did, which is how Mayuri figures it out too. But
Yeah.
um I was kind of disappointed because he was being creepy about it. He was being real creepy about it.
That's the way he is.
I know. Daru's her dad.
Yes. The big twist.
Yeah, and like she kept calling him Papa, and he's like, I'd rather you call me Big Brother. I'm just like, Vom. Vom. That is your daughter, sir. Um, she reveals that like they're all dead in the future,
Mm-hmm.
which is yikes. That they started a resistance movement against CERN and died in the process. Um, so when he undoes the D-mail, she still goes back to like the 70s. She doesn't have her like ultimate failure moment, at least. So like she dies of an illness as opposed to suicide.
Mm-hmm.
Um so it's not as tragic as it was, but
Is
still
this the
sucks.
ending where like she goes back in time and then Okabe remembers what happens and like finds her and she has a world line detecting device in like the house she was living in?
So the house that she's living in, Mr. Braun was given the detecting device.
Right, yeah.
And Mr. Braun's like, yeah, I don't know what this is, but like maybe you can figure it out. And she tells him at one point, like, once this gets to one, then you're to the original timeline.
Right.
And I think it's like at point 3 when they start.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, you're right.
Remembering things.
Yay. Um so that's really the big gist of her story.
Yeah.
I mean, like there are tiny details throughout, but like that's the big part of it. So who are we undoing next?
Ferris.
Ferris.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I guess it should be mentioned that Ferris wears cat ears and puts "nya" in like every single thing she says.
It's because she works at a cat cafe. It basically hams up as a character.
Yeah, cat made cafe
Yeah.
that she owns. Um, and so she sent a D-mail that she didn't want anybody to see. She said it was secret. Um, and essentially like what this D-mail did was her dad 10 years prior to this, um she had sent him like an email basically saying like, you know, we need ransom for your daughter or something like that. Your daughter's been kidnapped. And she had done that because he had canceled on like hanging out with her when he had promised he would. And so he panicked and took like an airplane back and died on the airplane. So she sent a email back that was basically like, no, take the train. So he lived. And also, like, one of the side effects of that is that, like, oh, hey, there's no like moe otaku stuff anymore in this town. It's all like electronics.
Yeah.
Because the dad is not into the idea of all that. And so the struggle with this is that he essentially Okabe basically has to like sentence him to die in order to undo this. So he's like, this sucks. But that's what he has to do. If you choose not to undo the D-mail, though, like you essentially like forget everything and date her, which is interesting. But yeah, essentially like what you have to do is kill her dad.
Yeah.
Send an email. It's like, JK, don't take the airplane or don't take the train. It's fine. Your daughter's not kidnapped. Um, One interesting part about this, though, is that we do actually see Ferris without the cat ears and without all the nyas during this, and it's like the first time we see that,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, okay, it's just not completely weird. So that's undone, and
Yep.
then Luca is next.
Yes.
And Luca is a very feminine guy. Like he has a very feminine appearance. Um, and so at one point, his D-mail was sent to his mom's pager to eat more veggies so that he would be born as a girl instead of
Because
as
that's
a
how that
guy.
works.
Yeah, totally how it works. So his D-mail worked though, and he is a lady in this, which leads to like a gross groping scene, which is that's not my first reaction of like, hey, I need to know like whether this person is a guy or not. I'm just gonna stick my hand like in their crotch area. Like that's not how I would go about that at all. But I'm a logical person. um so as you go through Luca's story, you find out that the reason that Luca wanted to be a girl is because Luca has feelings for him, for Okabe. Um, and he felt like it was inappropriate for him to have feelings for him as a guy. And so my initial thought process when playing this is Luca trans? But then you're like, and I still think that there's probably some question on that. But it is very, very clear that, like, at the very least, Luke is gay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when he's a guy, and that's fine. Although, like, it's weird the translation, like, repeatedly says homosexual, and I'm like,
It's a weird way to put it.
It makes me uncomfortable. Also, there's this weird part where Luca, as a guy, is cosplaying, and Daru's like, "Oh man, I'm gonna be like a low angler on you." I'm like, "Ew! Please stop saying you're gonna like shoot pictures of people's skirts. That's gross." So yeah, the whole like love confession happens, and that undoes they undo the pager message to return Luca to being a guy.
Mm-hmm.
Again, an alternate version is that you can keep Luca as a girl and date Luca, but that is not the canon option. Who do we have next?
Mayuri.
She had a D-mail?
It's basically you have to choose Mayuri or Makase.
Oh, right, that thing. Yes. Okay, so but what happened to the Moika part?
Stuff happened in that one. I think that's more general.
More
like
general?
That might be in the Makase ending.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But yeah, she has some wild stuff where like
big reveals.
She kind of loses it because like her handler does not contact her. Mm-hmm. This person is named FK.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was like, that's a.
I think
that's a sweary thing.
That is a sweary thing. Because it stands for something.
Or FB.
Okay, FB.
I think that's the one. She has this handler at FB who's like would contact her for missions and everything, and it just like ghosts her after everything that happens, and she just like loses it. Like she just holds up in her own apartment and just like does not leave, and everything. And Okabe and Makase kind of had to like figure out a way to like talk to her and everything to figure out information to try and figure out all what's going on.
Yeah, because one section she commits suicide.
Right.
And he's like, nope, that's not what we're going to deal with.
Mhm.
So it has to back in time and prevent that.
And then this basically all leads you to realizing or finding out that Mr. Braun is FB.
Yeah. So I had to look it up because I forgot. Ferdinand Braun is.
Yes.
Why he picked FB, but yeah, he is. He's FB, and
It's a wild reveal.
He is the one who invented the CRT.
Mm-hmm.
It was. I was not expecting that. And that reveal is crazy pants because not only do you learn that like he is FB, you also learn that like, he thinks that since they've been find out that they're now useless, so he just like shoots himself in the head.
Mm-hmm.
And just so happens that Nay,
his daughter,
sees that. In one version of it, comes up and just like shanks Moeka.
Mm-hmm.
And then like
things get dark.
Yeah, like it comes up and explaining like, oh hey, by the way, like I've been doing a lot of time hopping lately, and also I kill you in the future. And like she says some really messed up stuff about how she murders him.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, uh-oh, I know this is all going to be undone when I undo everything, but like I can't just like let this ride. So he tries to like undo her seeing that.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately it's just he has to undo the D-mail, which turns out that the D-mail was her saying where the location of the computer was at the shrine.
Right.
And he has to send the message as FB to disregard.
Mm-hmm.
And then that gets us back to where we have to make the decision of like, yay, Mayuri's gonna survive. That's pretty cool, right?
Someone will die. I will say that like the Moeka stuff really makes it like always like very tense whenever you talk to Mr. Braun afterwards.
Yeah.
But like, you know, he, despite like the fact that like him and Okabe kind of like butt heads a lot, there are definitely times where he comes through in the clutch for you.
Yes.
So it's like it also is like it's just like, are you still doing the stuff that I know you're doing? But also like if I need someone to look out for something, like this is probably the guy to go to.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very weird relationship. But yeah, like I said, when you get back, you're like, yay, Mayuri's gonna survive. That's pretty cool. But then he has the realization of like, oh, but when I get back to that timeline, Kirisu's dead.
Yep.
And she's dead before I even sent my original D-mail that said she was dead, because that's what the D-mail was that I have to undo.
Yep.
So yeah, he has to decide who lives and who dies.
Mm-hmm.
Yikes. It's pretty messed up.
Yeah. It's a crucial big choice.
Yikes.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a few moments of like, oh, you know, maybe I can just like let it lie and she won't die this time.
Nope.
No, she dies every single time.
Can't escape from crossing fates.
Oh my god. Is this the one where like he initially gets himself in that weird time loop where he repeats the same day over and over and over and over? Is that the other one?
It might be. I don't remember for sure.
Because there is one section that also gets dark. That he's like, okay, nobody's gonna die. I can't have either of these girls die, so I'm just gonna keep repeating the same day over and over and over. We're gonna ride bikes. It's gonna be great. And like there are certain events that happen, like Daru leans back and like almost gets hit by a truck. And after doing this a few times, he's like, what if I just like pushed him? I can undo it. And then he's like, wait a minute, what? No, I shouldn't be
Hold
thinking
the
these.
phone.
And then he like gets into this weird dark loop of like, this is what was there again. And he's like, oh, you know, I could just like drag her off and have my way with her. No one would know. And I'm like, okay, one, that's creepy. That's really creepy. And like the scenes that they use in the anime, like have really weird close-ups of like her butt.
Mm-hmm.
That made me extremely uncomfortable this whole time. I'm like, yeah, I could do without the like couple rape mentions here and there. That'd be cool. But eventually she figures out like, hey, you've been doing this repeatedly, right? This isn't something you've done for the first time. And she's like, you need help. You can't keep doing this. This isn't okay. So yeah, he ultimately does have to make his choice.
I think that's a Suzuha ending.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's messed up.
Yes, regardless.
It's real messed up.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't want anybody to die.
Essentially, you pick Mayuri, Kurisu dies, and you go off and live your life being like, oh, I'll remember you.
Yeah.
I will remember you.
God.
Well, she won't remember him.
Because
she's dead.
She's dead.
So that's one way. But then the other way is you go with Makise. And essentially, like, this ending kind of is predicated on, like, you picking the right choices throughout the entirety of the game. And then eventually they'll be like, oh, we have feelings for each other.
Yeah, because you have to talk to her a certain way, and she starts opening up to you about like her dad and her relationship with her dad.
Right.
Which, you know, is not brought up at all throughout the rest of the story. So I was like, oh man, this route is like daddy issues, the route. But yeah, once you get through all the dad texts, they realize like, oh hey, we're kind of in love. Let's smooch.
Mm-hmm. And then I think the regular ending kind of still kind of veers you off into going back to the original timeline.
Yes.
But the true ending obviously goes a little bit further, where the true ending does some wild things.
Yep.
Where they do one of the coolest things that I always enjoy in video games is credit fake outs.
Yeah, I was not expecting that.
Yeah, so like they roll credits as if you got an ending, and like they go through it for like a good bit.
Yeah.
And then eventually you hear a phone ring. And like Daru picks up, and on the other end is Suzuha, who shouldn't be calling right now.
Right.
Because if we were back at the original time where like at the very beginning of the game, no one would know who she is.
Right, and she would have been gone.
Yes. So like that phone call happens, and then the like eventually the credits stop, and you start rewinding back, and
the credits rewind.
Eventually you come back to like you meet on the rooftop, and Suzuha appears in like military gear and like lays out what's really going on.
Yeah.
Where like she reveals, you know, she's from the future. This is my time machine. By the way, I need you to prevent Makise's death, because if we don't do that, World War III is going to happen.
Yep.
So we need to fix this like now.
Yeah, that was wild. But she does reveal like, oh hey, this time machine's actually perfected. Dad had a lot of time to work on it.
Also, I think it helps that like the time machine in the other world line like crashes into the building.
Yeah.
And this one is like just on top.
Yeah.
So it's fine. So yeah, you gotta go back in time again. And essentially, you have to prevent Makise's death. The first time you go through, it goes very poorly.
Yeah, it doesn't go well at all.
You basically shank her.
Yeah, you kill her.
Oops.
Also, her dad's trying to kill her and
Yeah.
steal her research.
Yes.
And so your 2 quests are save her from dying and make sure that that research doesn't like get out.
And you fail both.
You failed both.
So like that happens and like Okabe is just like covered in blood. Suzuha finds him like, hey, we gotta get out of here now.
Yeah.
Gotta get out of here. And like you come back to the rooftop and like he's just like covered in blood. And they're like, did you do it? And they're like, oh, no. And he's just like, I'm done.
Yep.
I'm not doing this anymore. I can't. It's impossible. Which I told you about, and basically this is kind of the split in the game where if Mayuri does not come up and like slap him, and he decides to get the will back to continue forward, that's the true ending to Steins Gate. If everything happens and he still decides not to do anything, that leads you to Steins Gate 0, where he is vehemently denied going to help Suzuha, and this is very slight spoilers, but like Steins Gate 0 picks up like 6 months later, and like Suzuha's still like, we need to go save her. We are running out of time. You realize if we do not do this, World War III happens, and I'm not gonna let that happen again. And he will still just be like, because he's so just like depressed and everything, just like, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
So like that leads all the way to like that game and everything that happens. So
Which I still will play eventually.
yeah, it's a wild thing that like just that tiny split leads over to like a completely different game where you do not get the true ending essentially.
But this version, he does get slapped, and Suzuha is like, so yeah, did you get an email?
Yeah.
And he's
check
like,
your phone.
Turn on TV is one of them. And
you see Dr. Nakabachi basically being like, hey, look at my thesis I have now. Oh,
it survived the fire in the cargo hold. Look at this little metal oop. I don't know how it got here, but like, yay, that's what saved it.
And Mayuri's like, my Oopa.
Yeah, because it has her name written on it and everything.
Because she had lost it that day.
And then there's another message that's like a video message. And he's like, yeah, I tried to play it, but it didn't work. And she's like, yeah, it wasn't time yet. Hit play now. So he does. And it's a video. And it's a film. And it's hilarious because like he first starts talking a little bit, and Mayuri's like, oh my god, your voice is like really deep and cool. And I'm like, what? How does his voice get deeper? He's 18.
I mean, your voice can get deeper as you get older.
Yeah, that's true, but it's not that much older.
Well, yeah. So this is Okabe from 2036.
Laying out the plan.
Prior to Suzuha going out on her mission. Which you'll learn all about in Steins Gate 0. Because you'll literally see them make this video. But yeah, he lays out the plan of like, hey, this is what you need to do in order to save her.
Fool the world. And it's hilarious because like when he says that fool yourself, fool the world, he like switches back to like old like Kyoma. Is that his like
Kyoma?
Yeah. And he's just like, I know what this means, and he like shifts into that personality and is basically like, I am an evil genius. I know what I need to do. I got this.
You've got to get to the perfect timeline, which is Steins Gate.
Steins Gate is the timeline between timelines. And he's like, yeah, it's Steins Gate. I named it.
Duh.
Doesn't it sound cool? Because he's
like,
mentioned Steins Gate a few times in his like rants
to the organization.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a thing, and so he's like, all right, I know what I need to do. I got this.
He essentially revigorates himself, and he goes off with Suzuha again to try and fix things. And essentially, the way he's going to fix things here is like, hey, I got to shake myself to make it look like I'm dead.
Yeah. So he has to like avoid his other timeline self.
Yes, You
Um,
do not want to create a time paradox.
you do not. He goes and gets like the metal one before Mayuri can get it, so that she gets like a regular plastic one that she writes her name on, and then it's dropped, and then he realizes like Hirasu picks it up, and that's how it ended up in the folder.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that problem solved. That the thesis will no longer survive the cargo fire. So then the other thing is that he has to convince the other version of himself and everybody else in the world that like she died, that she got stabbed.
Mm-hmm.
So he tries to like go through the series of events as it would have happened. Um, and he ends up getting stabbed by her dad, and he runs off. But then he realizes like, oh, he also like tased her to knock her out.
Yeah, you basically just get her out of the picture so she wouldn't run into anything that's happening.
Yeah. And he realizes when he looks down, he's like, "There's not enough blood here. It's not gonna convince me."
I gotta dig in a little deeper.
So he just like takes his fingers and starts digging into his wound and dropping his blood everywhere. And I'm like, ugh.
Yep.
Yeah. And then Susa comes in and is like, "Dude, what are you doing?" And he's like, "Look, it's perfect, isn't it?" She's like, "Come on, don't die."
We have to go. You need medical help.
She's like, "Do not die." And he's like, "No, I don't die here. That's not how this goes. It's fine."
Mm-hmm.
So they get back to the time machine. She's like, "By the way, I just want to say like thank you, and I might not be there when we get back. Just a heads up." He's like suffering, and the way that they animate him in the animes, he kind of looks like he's taking a really bad dump. He's like holding his belly, and it's funny. So yeah, she does disappear, and everything's fine.
They get to the right world line.
And he's like, "Yeah, she won't know who I am, but it's fine because she's alive."
Mm-hmm.
And so they keep doing their thing. And she's alive. The police are looking for the young man who was stabbed. Nobody takes her dad seriously anymore, and the thesis did get burnt in the cargo. And he's just like, "Yeah, this is fine. This is how it should be." And he's walking down the street at one point and runs into her. And she's like, "I've been looking for you. Where have you been?" And he goes through some small talk, and he like makes a joke about her being his assistant, and then realizes like, oh crap, she won't know what that is. And she's like, "I'm not your assistant." I like goes on this rant about something that she had said before, and then they both realize like, oh, I remember. Da-da-da. She knows all the things.
Mm-hmm.
I forget what his special ability was called. Like
Reading Steiner.
Reading Steiner. There you go. He's like, Reading Steiner is activated for her.
So yeah, that's Steins Gate in a nutshell.
It's wild.
Yep.
Wild.
Yep.
Man. I was a little freaked out when he started like shoving his fingers into his gut. Yikes.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that he's just like, "Yeah, I don't die here. It's fine." As he's like holding his belly while it's bleeding profusely. So everybody's fine. Everybody lives.
Everybody's fine for now.
Yeah, I'm sure that he's gonna have like insane PTSD and like insane trauma because of this.
Oh yeah.
Since
So,
he
just
watched,
wait till you play Steins Gate Zero.
yeah, since he watched like everybody he cares about die repeatedly, like hundreds and hundreds of times.
Mm-hmm.
Yay. But he grew up and became less insufferable.
Mm-hmm.
Good for him.
So the next one you're playing is eventually playing Steins Gate Zero. which they are
Yeah.
doing an elite version of that game as well, but I'm assuming you're probably not going to get that.
I don't know that I want to play that version.
Yeah. I mean, also, you could probably get Zero for much cheaper than what Zero Elite would be.
That's what I've been trying to find out is like what I'm trying to find a deal on it.
So, yeah.
We'll get back to you guys eventually when I play Zero.
Steins Gate Zero, where you'll have 2 big story paths that you'll have to go through. You will meet new characters. You will meet Suzuha's mom.
I'll say I have to meet whoever Daru ends up with, which
Yep.
I made the same joke that I think it was Kirsu makes it. I was like, oh god, somebody sleeps with him. Which yeah, somebody does.
You'll know the context for that piece I wrote for Crunchyroll like 2 years ago, which you probably don't remember.
I remember that I edited it, but I don't actually remember what it said.
It's I
remember it deals with mental health because you asked me
Yeah.
questions about it.
that episode in particular is real powerful. Because, like, I guess this is a very minor spoiler, but, like, it is Steins Gate Zero, but Okabe is able to time travel to a world where he finds Kirisu again and reunites with her. And basically, she finds out at some point that, like, oh, I know that you're from a world line where I'm dead. And they have to have that conversation.
Yeah.
It's rough, but, like, it's very cathartic for him in a way that, like, I was very surprised that, like, the series was able to pull off.
Man.
Yeah. The TV anime actually has done some interesting things for, like, in the lead up to Steins Gate Zero, they did, like, a re-release of the 23rd episode of the TV anime, which is basically the split point for the series. And they basically do a version where it leads you to Steins Gate Zero. And then they also did an OVA that takes place after the true ending.
Oh, I'd be interested in seeing that.
So it's like, it's Okabe, Daru, Mayuri, Luca, Ferris going to Los Angeles.
What?
Because Ferris is doing a Rynet tournament. And they also find Makase.
Man.
Which I think I've watched that episode, and it's, it's all right. It's basically, it's fluff.
Oh, okay.
Main story fluff. So if you want some of that, like, that thing's pretty all right to check out. But yeah, Steins Gate is it's a wild ride. Like, I love that fake out to the true ending.
Yeah, that credit reroll was
So
really
good.
good. It was really good. Like, I texted you, or was I on chat with you when that happened?
I think you were on chat with me because you're like, oh, I got credits. Yeah, this is
Yeah.
your thing.
And then it started doing that. I'm like, oh, and you're like, I love that moment.
I heard the phone ring. I was like, this is the moment. This is the moment. Because I remember when I did the recording, when I was recording this, because this was when I was doing YouTube stuff, I didn't know that was a thing. So I was just like, okay, well, we got another ending.
Well, I didn't know it was a thing.
Yeah, but, like, for me, it was like, here's another ending. I guess we'll figure something out for the true ending, even though it says, like, I should probably do some more stuff here. But then, like, all of that stuff happened. I was just like, oh my god.
It's amazing.
So good. Like, the only games that I can think of that, like, do that well, do, like, that kind of fake out ending really well is, like, Metal Gear Solid 2 and Danganronpa 2. Which are, like, those two do it exceptionally well, and this does it exceptionally well. So, like, it's high praise.
Yeah, it was great. I was not expecting it. It was very well done. Yay.
So good.
I liked it. I liked it a lot. There were problematic moments, but overall,
Yeah, of course.
I enjoyed it quite a bit. It was a fun ride.
You do have one of the, like, side games that they put out.
Yes.
Which is
Linear something.
Yeah, Steins Gate linear bounded phenogram.
I've played like 10 minutes of it.
Yeah. This was something that had not come out over here until the release of Steins Gate Elite, which was you only got it if you bought the PS4 version. The people who bought the Switch version got a new game called 8-Bit ADV Steins Gate, which is basically Steins Gate, but what if it was a Famicom adventure game?
Oh my god.
Which sounds really cool.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. And there's also a dating game now.
Yeah, there's a dating game that was also just recently put out.
Yeah.
But this is like a bunch of like side stories that are like written by a bunch of various people in general.
Mm-hmm.
One of them being most notably Kotaro Uchikoshi.
Which I'm dying to see what that is.
Yeah, that sounds real interesting. Like I really want to see what he does with these characters, with his universe, with this story.
Which of course you can't screenshot that either.
But like if there's anyone who's gonna do weird stuff in like this kind of universe, like it's Uchikoshi.
Yeah, like he has experience with timeline jumping.
Yeah, he sure does.
So I'm very interested to see what that is, but I have not had time to like really dive into it. I like the art though.
Yeah, it like that version uses like the original art, so like you actually have a chance to see it how it was originally.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Ah. Yeah.
Also a game that was originally put out on the Xbox 360.
I can't.
Steins Gate, big supporter of the Xbox 360.
So
late in the Xbox 360's lifespan.
Goodness. Oof.
So there you go.
That's Steins
Gate. It's a pretty cool game.
It is a pretty cool game.
I'll be excited to hear what you think of Zero, a game that I initially said on this very podcast, which was like one of the very first episodes we did, or I did by myself.
Oh.
I think. Where I said, I believe like the gist was like, it's a good game, but it's a game that I don't know if it needed to exist.
Well, I will find out once I find a price point that I'm like, yep, that's the one I'm gonna pay that price.
Yep.
We'll see.
There you go.
Keep an eye out for me.
Well, that is that.
That's that. We did it.
That is that. We did it. So, if you'd like more from us, go to seasonlandwithcheckup.com or sac.cool where you can find past episodes of this podcast and other podcasts like Seasonland with Checkup and Jared and Now Watch. You can also find columns reviews on the site as well. If you'd like more from Ann Ladium, go to annladium.com. She's got columns review and reviews.
just one review.
Yeah, just one. You can follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/animecheckup. And you can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/SACOVA. Next week, we will do, I don't know, something.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
Mm-hmm.